station, and you can watch good things. We are on your computer or your mobile device. Just head on over to SuperTalk TV. And if you've ever tuned into the Mississippi Farm Bureau Insurance Company Scoreboard Show over the last 2 decades or more, then you are familiar with our guest today. Joining us is co-host of the show, Keith Walker, and today closes out another high school football season for them and the show. So welcome, Keith.
Hey, Rebecca, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of yours. It's a pleasure to come on with you and Rhino. I'm a fan of his also. So I listen to you guys and I travel. I'm going up to the championship game tonight, and I'll be on site from there calling in the show, and we'll close out a great season of high school football.
Well, we appreciate that and appreciate you listening, but gosh, you got way more years in the tank than we do when it comes to hosting radio. So, Keith, how long have you been with the Scoreboard Show?
Well, let's see. It would have been 2003. Butch Hammock, who's also one of the co-hosts, and we came in as a team together in 2003. That was actually South Panola, and I believe that was South Panola and Ocean Springs, and it wasn't snowing, but it was much colder than it is in Oxford for the championships today. We're gonna have a pretty good day right now. It's like mid 60s. And it's pretty really nice up here. Almost going to push 70 degrees and probably in the 50s tonight. Perfect football weather for a great championship.
That is one thing about Mississippi weather this time of year, Keith. Y'all don't know whether you're going to be freezing your petunias off or sweating it out when it comes to the championship games, but it always comes sort of this time of year that starts to wrap things up. I think that's one of the unique things, at least about the Scoreboard Show, but then high school football in general. It revs up at the first of the fall, and then by the end of the year, you guys are all wrapped up. Does it feel like a blur at the end of each season, or does it feel like it's, a long time coming?
Well, Rebecca, it's one of those things that once it gets rolling, it seems like it goes by pretty quickly. I can just remember starting back maybe the last week in August, right before Labor Day weekend, and now we're at the championships. And this was a unique year because I think we only had one Friday night that we had rain. Usually, the last couple of years, it was a lot of rain, but this year, it seemed like it was a drought. I don't think we had rain for I'd say maybe 10 straight weeks of the season. We usually go 16. That somebody in the state would have got a little bit of rain. It was just really weird this year. Maybe from September to November, it was pretty dry in Mississippi. It was really drought, and the games all got in. Usually, sometimes you have lightning delays and stuff, but this year was kind of an exception. It was just pretty good weather, and just like you said, it's just flown by. I can't believe that the season is over basically tomorrow night.
And I would assume you'd probably say 20 years has flown by, right? Kind of in a blink of an eye. I would think that when you started back in 2003, Keith, you didn't know, or maybe you did know that you would still be hanging in there 20 years later. And I can only imagine sort of the transition you've seen within high school football here in Mississippi. I just take my alma mater, for instance, Keith. I graduated from Terry High School in 2002, so a year before you came on the Scoreboard Show, and we were terrible. We were terrible in 2002, but something over the years, that I've just, at least with that high school, know we've had our ups and downs and, much better years than sort of others. When you look back over 2 decades, I mean, has all schools kind of had their opportunity to have their peaks and valleys over the years, or have some just stood out more than others?
Well, let's start with your alma mater. You said you're a Terry Bulldog?
Uh-huh. Go Dogs.
Okay. Well, you had the great Dixon brothers today. You had Boobie Dixon, who played at Mississippi State. He came out of Terry. Rashawn Dixon, he's a great baseball player, so I'm familiar with Terry. They actually were in the region a couple of years with my high school, Pearl High School, so I'm familiar with Terry. But we came in and we were in the South Panola era, where South Panola, was making national news. They won 87 straight ball games until they lost the championship game to Meridian, and that ended their long winning streak. Meridian had Tyler Russell that went on to play football at Mississippi State. But just you talk about some of the growth and some of the players that we've seen across the time we've been on the Scoreboard Show. For instance, we had Cam Akers on the show, the running back from Clinton there locally that went on to play at Florida State and then won a Super Bowl with the Rams. He came back from Achilles injury in 5 months and played the same year. Just incredible. We had Gardner Minshew that played at Brandon that's played for the Jacksonville Jaguars now on the show. We had Jonathan Mingo, who played at Brandon High School and played at Ole Miss, and now he's with the Carolina Panthers. We've seen a lot of good, excellent football players that have come through, that have been on our show, that we've been able to cover. And it's been our privilege to see them grow. And like I said, Mississippi high school football means a lot. And it just, the growth of the game, the growth of the MAIS and the MHSA, we've seen that. Those organizations have done a great job promoting, and we call ourselves also promoting because we like to have the players on. We've had a couple of players on this year on the show. We had the championship quarterback for Hartsfield Academy, who won their first championship this year. And we've had great players. Had Garrison Davis come on and talk with us. He's a young man that plays at Holmes County Central. Had a great year. So it's just been fun to cover these kids. And I got to give a shout-out to somebody who's been around actually longer than Butch and I have. That's Dixon Williams, the sports director there, of course. Dixon was the producer and has always been on that Scoreboard Show. We are the longest-running Scoreboard Show in the state of Mississippi. I want to say it's 27 years.
27 years. That's incredible. And Keith, you've been there at least this is your 20th year. And I can't imagine what it's like having that front row seat. And I assume with some of those players that you mentioned that went on to have great careers, you guys got to see them coming in as freshmen and sort of develop over those, next 4 years. And Mississippi feels like a big hometown. So when you have those players that you've watched sort of through their high school career, then go on to college or wherever to the next step, do you feel like that's like does that really feel like family for you guys because you've seen their career sort of grow and then take off?
Well, we have that mentality that it's about promoting the game and promoting these young men, and we like to talk to them. I know that when they're traveling back from games and then the announcers, broadcasters, we had good relationships with them because they bring the games to their radio audience, and then they call in and give reports. We had a young man that called us basically, I would say probably for about the last 12 years that we lost in that tragic fire, down in Brookhaven earlier this year. Young man named Terrence, who would call us religiously every Friday night, regardless if Brookhaven won or lost. Terrence was always going to give a report, and we missed Terrence. We kind of dedicated our season this year to Terrence and his memory because he brought it. He loved high school football. He loved his school, and you love that when people call in and they have the passion, with the schools. I mean, win or lose, it's about the kids and promoting the game, and that's some of the great things with the Scoreboard Show. We're statewide. I could be traveling somewhere, and somebody may, I tell them who I am. Oh, I've heard you on the Scoreboard Show before. Makes me feel good because I know somebody's looking or they've watched us, now with the growth of the SuperTalk and the SuperTalk TV. People I know watch you, fans of you, Rebecca and Rhino, they can watch you on TV. They can watch our show on TV if they're not traveling back in their car somewhere. So we've kind of seen it all. It's just great. We just always thank Dixon and Will and for the opportunity. We've had some great hosts over the years. Stephen Gagliano, who's in Atlanta now. And now Lance, that's up there, this producer, he's doing a good job at his first year, as host, and he's done a good year. He's got his rhythm now.
Y'all haven't hazed him at all? Y'all should put some jelly on his earpieces or something. Do y'all have a little fun? It's late on a Friday night. You got to have a little fun for the Scoreboard Show.
Oh yeah, and let me mention Perez and Lacey, our producers over the years. There's a guy now that we'd love to talk about. He called in actually last week. He's a young man, linebacker, West Jones. His nickname is Lunch Meat. We call him Lunch Meat Lindsay. We've had stories like the Skunk Bowl between Baldwin and Boonville. There was one year, Rebecca, that a skunk actually ran out on the field, and the referee had to halt the play because the skunk came out there. So that game between Baldwin and Boonville every year has become the Skunk Bowl. We have the game when you have the area over there that poultry's a big part of their economic community over there with Morton and Forest. We call it the Chicken Nugget Bowl. We've seen stuff like that. That's just some of the deals. Of course, Pearl and Brandon, the Rankin County Super Bowl. You have all these battles across the state, these rivalries, and that's some of the things that that makes high school football so unique and so fun in Mississippi.
And also what makes the Scoreboard Show a part of everyone's tradition over the last 20-plus years, Keith, as well as you guys do such a good job. Hey, hang tight with us. I got more for you coming up next. TV, and each Friday night during the Mississippi high school football season from 10 to 11:30 p.m. you can get up-to-the-minute scores and interviews with coaches and players with our guest Keith Walker. He's the co-host of the Mississippi Farm Bureau Insurance Company Scoreboard Show. Keith, have you gotten to where you can say that fast? And they're wrapping up their season, the 2023 season tonight, with their show from the state championship, which you guys are in Oxford. What time is the kickoff tonight, Keith?
Well, you have the championship game tonight. We have one at 7 p.m. tonight, the 6A championship between Grenada High School, who upset South Panola last week, against West Jones, who's looking for their second championship in 3 years. They defeated Picayune, who had won the championship the prior year. So we've got a great matchup here tonight. And one thing I got to ask you, Rebecca, because
Sure.
I'm a fan of your show, like I said, and listen, I have to ask you this, because I've seen, like, the last few years with the high school programs and these teams and these coaches trying to do all they can to get the advantages. I want to just talk about maybe some of the nutrition, and this is maybe even going into a little bit of college football, but the importance, which you think that as far as nutrition for these athletes and these football programs. I know they lift weights year-round. They have to look at the nutrition and kind of, which helps with the, agility and stuff. But I just want to get your thoughts on it. If I can play host of Good Things for just a second, I always wanted to ask you your thoughts on that.
Well, people, I think, have always recognized that athletes needed food for fuel. But I think now, after the science is coming out, people are better understanding the connection. They're recognizing that sports nutrition and the strategies behind it are really the building blocks to a better athlete. And so just like you can't have the world's best football player without having the best strength and conditioning coaches or having the best, offensive or defensive coaches, look at me and knowing all my words, you also can't have one that's not having the proper recovery, and usually that comes through proper nutrition. And the part with athletes that most people don't think about, it, particularly in season, they're always in recovery because they're either on game day where they need to be at their peak, or they're going through a conditioning phase through the week or practice, and so they really are never off. There's really not a relaxed time where they need to not think about how they're fueling or hydrating their body. And sadly, we've also seen, at least here in the central area, where when sports nutrition isn't done properly, it can have detrimental effects to the athlete's health. So as a dietitian, man, it makes me super excited for people to finally recognize that this is one of the tools in a tool belt that everybody's doing anyway. Like, you're eating anyway, or you should be. So why not go ahead and maximize that with, some simple strategies and just, elevate your players to the next level, and also set them up for success in life when they can recognize how food affects not only their performance, but then also their bodies, their rest, their studies, and all the other things. So, yeah, it's a cool time to sort of be in that field. We're finally being recognized for having some good things to be able to provide our student athletes.
Well, and you mentioned this year, we started off, you remember, it was so hot. This was the first time that a lot of the schools started that first week of the season. They kicked off at 8 o'clock because it was just so hot. You had games that would have started at 7 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock, at 110 degrees against temperatures. That's another thing that was just, about this year that, we forget about. It's going to be a warm, I think, day here, but nowhere what we were experiencing, Rebecca, the first week of the season. I mean, like I said, these games were starting late, and they were kicking off, and we were, we come on at 10:06, and some of these games are just getting to halftime because they started at 8:30. I think even a couple started at 9 o'clock because it was so hot.
Right. And it's scary, too, because dehydration, even mild dehydration with a slight, like you think it's 2% less your body weight, starting at a game, you're already going at a deficit of what you're capable of. So you can't replenish that fast as athletes are losing it. So from where I was sitting here following Sports Talk, talking about it and all, I was excited to see that they took the heat into consideration, because with your college athletes, your professional athletes, they're under the guidance of probably a sports dietitian or a whole team of sports nutritionists of some capacity, making making sure they're ready. Sadly, our high school teams just don't have that opportunity to have that level of healthcare provision for the entire team. And so many of our athletes, although they know they should be doing, they're not always doing that. And so if one was to go out even the slight bit dehydrated with those type of temperatures, it could end bad quick.
Absolutely, you bring up a great point. I'm just, like I said, I'm so glad I got a chance. If I'm on with Rebecca Turner, when I'm on with the great Rhino, and I'm on when Tanya T comes on and talks about the movies, I'll say this, I'll tell you this, Rebecca, and Tanya T will maybe talk about it, but my first cousin is in the Eddie Murphy movie that's coming out today, actually, Candy Cane Lane.
I feel like that's a good thing, Keith. Red. You need to connect me. I also hear that you may have a real little black book of a lot of names and contacts of some of the most famous athletes and celebrities in Mississippi. I feel like I should take you to lunch, and you should give me a carbon copy.
Maybe we'll do that, but Rebecca, like I said, I look forward to Tanya T's movie deals every week. But y'all do a great job. I appreciate you having me on, and maybe hopefully we'll be able to get on with you, during the football season next year. But it's been an honor to be on here to talk with you and Rhino today. I appreciate you.
Well, before you go, what's your prediction for tonight? I don't know if you're allowed to root for somebody, but what's your prediction for the championships?
I don't root for teams except my team, which actually won the championship. Pearl, when they won their first and only state championship at Ole Miss in 2017 against Starkville. I think I like West Jones to win the game tonight, and in the Class 7A championship, I like Oak Grove to win the championship tomorrow night in a great game against Starkville.
Now, Keith, not only did I move from Terry, which was Go Dogs, I now live in Brandon, which is Go Dogs, so eat dirt.
I know. Brandon ate a little dirt last week. Didn't quite make it, but I have friends at Brandon, so we hated to see them not win, but hopefully maybe next year they'll have another shot at it.
And tonight's the last night for the Scoreboard Show for this season from 10 to 11:30. Any shout-outs you want to give, Keith, before you leave us?
Well, we got to give a shout-out to Lance and Caleb and Butch. We'll have Hartfield Academy fan on, our good friend Kim from Hartfield Academy, talking about them winning their first state championship. We'll have Garrison Davis, the quarterback from Holmes County Central, and we'll have highlights of the games and stuff. So, folks, make sure you tune in to the last show of the year.
All righty, Keith. Well, we hope you come back for your 21st season. Next time you're in the building here, you'll have to stop in and say hey here on Good Things.
Rebecca, a quick shout-out to Bob Subway Sullinger. That's his new nickname, Bob Subway Sullinger, that's up there.
Y'all just have way too much fun.
Appreciate you, Rhino.
I appreciate you, Keith. There you go. Keith Walker, co-host for over 20 years of the Mississippi Farm Bureau Insurance Company Scoreboard Show. Whew. Gosh, he's probably gotten better at saying that a whole lot quicker than I do. Kicks off every year right at the beginning of high school football season here in Mississippi, which is usually the kickoff to a new school year. And then they take you all the way through the state championships, which is going to be tonight. Don't forget that you can get your up-to-the-minute scores over at supertalk.fm/high school. If you want to listen to some of the games, you can open that up too on your SuperTalk Mississippi app. But then make sure you tune in to tonight starting at 10 o'clock for the last the last episode or show, they're not really episodes, of the Scoreboard Show tonight. What he didn't mention, though, is they do have a lot of fun, and I didn't get to, but they dress up every year for Halloween. You can only imagine being around something for 20 years, the fun and the camaraderie that you sort of build. And prior to, I guess, the social media craze, which was kind of picking up probably right when Keith came on the scene of Twitter and Instagram, or Facebook at that point, probably not Instagram, you really had to tune in if you wanted to get the scores from around. And it's nice to see that people still find the value in the interviews and sort of the commentary that come along with it, not just a score. There's so much more to it than just telling you who won or who lost. It's really sort of that first deep dive into the games. But what an exciting thing to do. I know you've been part of the football here as well. It's good to see the season come, but for some, it's nice to see it wrap up too. Because
it's nice to get a Friday night off.
I was just going to say, because for those who enjoy going to the games, there's always got to be someone holding back who's, keeping everything running. And as much fun as it can be, it's still a job. So it's a season for sure. Who are you pulling for, or any, for the championship games?
I honestly couldn't have told you who was playing before Keith called in, so I'm just going to pick the teams that lose the coin toss will win the games.
Is there any scientific data behind that?
Not at all.
None?
Just a gut feeling.
So I'll go with whoever has the cutest uniforms, which I don't know. I'm not really sure. Kind of still sour that Brennan didn't make it, but it was a heck of a game. And, there's always next year, so that's a cool part of it as well. But Keith already set us up. It's Friday, so we got Tanya T coming in next to do our movie reviews. So stick around.